Welcome in. Today we're going to be talking through the project schedule review process and show you how to best utilize the checklist as a tool to complete your review. Let's jump right in. First, I just wanted to highlight the Hawaii Standard Specification section 10608 progress schedules. What we've done is we've created a checklist that encompasses all the main points of what is in the spec. There are some more requirements within those specs though, so I do encourage everyone to go through and review those as well. An updated schedule is a current schedule developed from the baseline or subsequent schedule through regular monthly review to incorporate as-built progress and any unplanned changes. The contractor owns the construction schedule and is responsible for managing and updating the schedule. Even though the contractor does own the schedule, it is a shared resource. The owner or HDOT is responsible for reviewing the schedule for accuracy and approving the schedule or schedule update. Schedules are a shared project resource, not solely for the contractor, and this is in the specs. Minimize delays and associated delay costs to the state. We want to be able to make sure that we're tracking any delays and everything is shown in the as-built schedules. Accurate schedule information is used by HDOT upper management to track construction progress through the use of dashboards. When are these project schedule updates required? Specification section 10805E requires an updated schedule submitted by the contractor every 2 weeks. However, that can be kind of difficult to track and maintain, so industry standard is monthly updated schedules. Now, where do these schedules get uploaded? Because schedules and schedule updates are required per HSS 10806, the contractor shall submit schedules through the submittal module on ACC. By having these schedules come through as a submittal, this does allow us to make sure that the as-built schedule data is correct each month. How do we complete these reviews? Using the Forms tab in ACC, we have developed a checklist as a guide that will help you complete your schedule review. There's also the Schedule tab on ACC where you can manipulate data as needed. Also a reminder that you want to make sure that you have these required milestones, and you can also have the contractor, if your project is already started and you didn't get a chance to get these milestones added to your schedule in the initial baseline schedule, you can still ask that they include these milestones in a project schedule update as well. And now we'll be transitioning this to ACC and we'll get started in there. I'm just going to quickly show you guys all the areas that I would see schedule affected in ACC. There's this little dashboard that says project progress. I like to update these because it kind of gives you a snapshot of where your project is at. So it's helpful and handy to everybody that accesses your project. You have to manually enter everything. This isn't linked to any schedule or anything. So you do have to come in here and manually create. As things happen, you just hit a little checkbox and it means that that milestone has been completed. So now we're looking at the schedule tab. Just wanted to highlight here, all these boxes here are stacks, and you can see the little V2 and this one has a V3. What I'm doing is I'm creating one stack as my approved project schedule. This is my clean schedules that have been accepted on the project. So I'm going to jump over to the forms. Another thing I wanted to highlight to the group, under forms, ungroup templates, you'll see this progress schedule update checklist new. When you get into this form, you would create your form. You start scrolling through these tabs, general schedule information tab. A lot of this is pulled from the specs. Some of it is just best practice, and some of it is kind of a blend of the two. So we do have a tab for the project milestones here. The last tab that I wanted to show you related to schedules is the submittals. We want these schedules to come in as submittals. This gives us a chance to review the schedule, and if we have comments, we can kick it back and clean it up until we get it to a point where we're all in agreement. I'm going to look here. I'm going to see the attachments they've added. It looks like we've got a XER file. When you see that, it's a P6 raw file. If you see the .mpp or .xer, that means it's like an actual raw schedule file, which is good. That's what we want. So I would download both of these. I'm going to use a form that I've already filled out. I downloaded my schedule and the XER file. So this is where I would update my schedule here with that raw file. So when you click these little dots, you can just update your schedule this way. You can also go inside of the schedule and update it there. There's different ways to do it, but I'm going to hit update schedule. I'm going to load in the XER file that I just downloaded. So now I've got my version 3 loaded here. This is my October update. I'm going to open that up. When I log in, this is showing me the latest updated schedule that I just got as my submittal. I'm going to open up the PDF as well. The PDF itself, it looks like there's a submittal cover sheet printout of our schedule. They're showing it it with WBS or a work breakdown structure here. Now, real quick on the PDF, this is what the spec requires: is activity ID, name, original duration, remaining duration, start date, finish date, total float, activity percent, complete, and resources. When you see these highlighted headers, what's called a work breakdown structure, it's how the contractor has organized their schedule and they're breaking it into workable chunks. On the right side here, this is the Gantt chart. This blue line here is my data date line. In other words, that's the line that signifies what this schedule has been progressed to. The blue boxes, this means these are things that have all happened already. So they've been notated by the contractor as being started or completed. When you see the green here, this means that these are activities that have not yet completed. When you see the red lines, this is critical path. If any of these red items shift one day, your project substantial completion date will also move one day. So this is my schedule that I got. I'm going to click over to a version that I started marking up already in the essence of saving a little time. If you look at this spec, there's actually a lot required on schedules. Feel free to look at the spec. For me personally, I do like to see PDF printout of the schedule showing all activities, critical path remaining activity schedule, a raw schedule file, the XER or an MPP, a report or a narrative that outlines added activities, and then critical path changes, critical path delay, a logic report. My first comment here was that all we had was a 2-page schedule that showed me all of the activities. So I was asking them to include a narrative report and then a logic report that shows predecessors, successors. I also added this into my PDF. Has progress for this period been adequately as-builted? Some of the logic needs to be corrected. My substantial completion originally was February 25th. I've actually lost 39 days, which is kind of strange because this is actually a 30-day time period that we're looking at here. So in 30 days, I've lost 39 days. This tells me that there's a logic bust on this schedule. So I did make a comment saying substantial completion moved 39 days and a 31-day update. We need to fix the logic. As I kind of looked further into this, we had RFI delay. I see that was an activity that got added, and there's my 39 days. So that tells me right away that this is probably where my bust is. And we can look at that a little bit better in ACC schedule. Let's do a quick compare here. You'll see all these filters here that show you the difference between the version 2 schedule and this version 3 schedules. It would be the difference between my September update and then now my October update. In my September update, I had a substantial completion date of February 25th, 2026. This update shows April 5th, 2026. One cool thing about this is I can actually filter and just show new. This is just going to show me the new activities that were added in this update. And lo and behold, there we go. There's my new RFI delay item. And then I've got some other new item that was added in the schedule as well. When I click on this RFI delay, it actually pops up a little box on the side here. I have a predecessor unspecified. So that means there is no predecessor to this activity. I do have a successor PCC payment submittal review and approval. So that's on my critical path. So I know that this RFI is driving my critical path. There is a 39-day delay. Let's say I know that this RFI was actually responded to on October 15th, yet it's showing on my PDF printout here that it's not finished until November 25th, which is actually in the future. There's obviously something weird with this activity. I've asked them to fix the logic on it, but I'm also noting in here, this activity was actually completed on October 15th. So we need to fix the successor, predecessor. And then I noted over here, because my predecessor is this PCC payment submittal, and look at that, they're finishing on the same day. So that tells me that there's probably an error in how this is linked to this activity. I noted that here. Looks like this is a finish to finish activity. We need to fix the logic. It's ultimately trying to understand your substantial completion date. You're always keeping an eye on that. You want to understand what activities are driving that out. Has the progress for this period been adequately as-builted? And when you see an A next to a date, so that means that the contractor has marked this as started and then it was finished on October 22nd. When you get your updates, you want to look at these dates and make sure that you agree, or you would more or less agree with when these dates are marked as finished and completed. That's what those A's mean. This has started and finished, this is started, this hasn't finished. And then you'll see here too on your Gantt chart on the side, percent complete. So as you go through this checklist, you're going to notice certain questions that are meant to trigger you to start thinking about these things. The status date matches or is after the period end date. It'll tell you the data date here is actually October 28th. So this means that the contractor didn't progress the schedule to the date that they're claiming they did. Status date shows 10/20. I said 10/29. It should have been 28, but the period end date is noted as 10/31. So that would need to get updated. The only activity without predecessors is the activity with the earliest start date. And then I'll jump to the next one, which is basically the same thing, but saying that all activities also need to have a successors. This is how you can get an idea of what is tied to what. Another way you can do this is you can turn on your dependencies under the configure, and that's going to show you all the squiggly lines that go everywhere. And then here I can kind of see what activities have predecessors, what activities have successors, and you can kind of just roll through this list and see if anything is missing. I can use my new item tab to just see what items were added in the schedule and isolate it that way. And I'm just going to check both of these activities to make sure that they're configured correctly. The RFI delay, it looked like there was no predecessor, and I'm going to click on to my new TCS epoxy and cure. It looks like we had a predecessor, but there's no successor. Any changes to the critical path activities, and I marked here, yes, the logic needs to be corrected. Some of the reasoning behind that, it was due to that RFI that was added in. Our labor resources allocated to the activities, you can check via your filter here. How you can look at this is you can actually go to your configure button and hit labor resource. What it does is it kind of pops it onto your Gantt chart here, and you can see that these labor resources have not been assigned to these new activities. This is a spec requirement that we have resources loaded to all of our activities. So we talked about at the top, making sure that all projects have these 6 milestones added. So notice to proceed, start work, pre-final inspection, final, contractual completion. My schedule here had NTP. So my comments on this milestones category, these are all my milestones. It looks like I'm a few light. So I am going to add a comment saying change the milestone name NTP to notice to proceed, add new milestone contractual completion for 2/25/26, especially since the substantial completion is now pushed out. We want to be able to track that date, and then add a new milestone for pre-final inspection and final inspection. Those were also missing on this schedule. Have any new milestones been added? This is kind of more just for future updates. So I said no. Any milestone dates changed? Yes. If your substantial completion is pushing out, but there's other milestones that are kind of tied in with that aren't moving as well, that should be, that would mean that they're not tied correctly to the activity. Look at all your milestones. Your milestones are typically all on your critical path. So once something shifts, they all kind of start shifting. Has the contractual completion date milestone changed? This is the one milestone that you're going to have that has no ties to your schedule. It only moves if you execute a time extension change order. So that's the milestones tab here. And then the last tab is just kind of task description and durations. It's a little bit more basic. Do new task descriptions and durations adequately define work scope? Kind of a sanity check based on your knowledge and experience. Your new activities that were added in this update, whether or not they make sense. 20 working days. So this is another spec requirement. Schedule activities are supposed to be 20 working days or less. So when you start having these activities that are longer than that, you would typically break it up into a little bit more manageable chunks. So for this particular contract, this is a calendar day. We're going to show how to export the checklist. So once I get through this, I'm going to hit export. I'm going to run the report here, take my PDF, however you're wanting to get these comments back to your contractor, go upload that into the submittal module, return it R&R and wait for the resubmittal. Once I get my resubmittal, Rev 1 to that same submittal. So it looks like they've included more of a narrative report, got a list of contents that includes a milestone summary, progress made last period, critical path summary, schedule changes, current and potential delays with TSLD, WBS, critical path remaining with WBS, a logic report, and of course the XER file. So I like what I'm seeing here. Having narratives from the contractor that explain their viewpoint on what the delays are that are shown is important as well. Remember that if contractors are claiming delay that is at fault of HDOT, they do need to be following the spec requirements under 10805, provide those notifications to the state. It's not enough for them to just include it in a schedule update and say, hey, look, you acknowledge my schedule, now you owe me a bunch of delay. They have to be notifying the owner within the time frame. So it looks like on this updated schedule, I'm showing now 14 14 days of delay instead of 39. It looks like they've corrected a lot of the information that I had put in there. We have all of our project milestones now added in here. I have notice to proceed, start work, contract completion milestone was added in here on the 25th. We have pre-final inspection added in. We have substantial completion, final inspection. And then looking down, another thing that I forgot to mention, what we like to see is a WBS created for delays up towards the top of your schedule printout. And it's just a nice clean way to track all of the delays. And I'm just going to click back because I think I did add this as a comment in here. Looking at this comment here, add activity to the new WBS delays. This activity name was pretty light. It just said RFI delay. Particularly when it's relating to a delay, I want to see a little bit more details and information. So I asked them to give better description on what that activity is and give it its own WBS category, right? In this update, there's a nice new category for delays. That RFI was added in here. RFI 1 clarification needed. There's now an actual start date, an actual finish date. Looks like they fixed the logic ties with this item. It just gives me a better picture of what we're looking at right now. It's still showing delay, and then you can kind of roll down in your schedule here, and there's my 14-day delay, which is affecting the PCC pavement submittal review and approval package. And then you can kind of look down and see where there's other delays going on. We have a delay with our NPDES permit. Let's just say, okay, now I'm good. The schedule looks great. We're going to acknowledge the submittal. The last things I would do is come into my schedule module and I would update my overall approved schedule with the new clean version. That'll be reflected on the dashboard. The very last thing I would do, I know we talked about this a little bit, but I would come in here and just clean up my project progress here. Adjust the dates. It looks like our substantial is going to push out. So I would just come in here and clean all this up so that we have a better picture of our project for our team. So just a recap of what we went through today. We had the ACC schedule module overview, updated schedules sent through the submittals module, ensuring your milestone naming conventions are correct, access your progress schedule update checklist in the ACC forms, use the schedule module and PDF reader to review the schedule, enter your comments and disposition in the submittals module, verify your comments have been implemented in the resubmittal, update your overall progress schedule in the schedule module, and then lastly, updating your dashboard milestones on the project home screen. Okay, so hopefully today's training was helpful for you. Let's get those progress schedule updates cleaned up so we can efficiently track as-built progress. Thanks all, and see you on the next one.